guys, back again. The red light is on. My name is Dave Van Auken here with the PFL commentator, UFC pioneer, MMA pioneer of the Anakin Florian podcast. Ken Flo, what's up, my man? How are you?
I'm well, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. It's like a yearly thing we do this. Always a pleasure. Always love talking to you, my man. Really do appreciate the time.
Likewise.
All right, time to get into PFL playoff time. San Antonio, here we come. MSG, here we come. A lot of big names, PFL stuff. But before we get into it, 10 days, 2 weeks ago, International Fight Week, UFC, the Expo. How crazy is it? If I would have said to you, Kenny, 10, 15 years ago, the regional scene, even you fighting in the UFC, if I would have said to you, you guys would have done a podcast, with International Fight Week, and people would have came to you all over the world. Literally, people from all over the world would have watched you guys talk on a stage about MMA and mixed martial arts, and they would have capped off with an unreal card. How crazy was just that week and weekend? Just unbelievable, right? Just an unbelievable scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to be, to have high hopes for the sport. I remember, being very optimistic back then, but I'd be lying if I told you that this is absolutely expected. It went exactly how I thought it would. I thought it would probably take a lot longer. The fact that this sport has exploded like it has, I think is a testament to all the hard work of the fighters, the evolution of the sport, the businesses that have been organized, obviously the UFC and everything they've been putting into the sport, and how they've been promoting it, but all the other organizations as well, the PFL, Bellator, all these organizations that are doing a good job of, promoting the sport, taking the sport to another level and getting them on networks and channels all over the world. So it's been amazing to see how fast we have progressed here, not only with the actual evolution of sport, but the popularity of the sport itself.
For sure. You mentioned that B word. I'm going to save that for the end, a little PFL Bellator talk. We'll save that for the end. I really want to get into the playoffs. We're around a couple weeks away. San Antonio, like I said, in New York City. But before we get into the playoffs, if I can ask you real quick, the PFL season has come and gone. Kind of fun questions. Let's get into it. What has been the moment? What has been that one moment? If I could say, Kenny, the 2023 season's over, what was that one moment you're like, yeah, that was the moment of the 2023 season for you?
Great question. For me, Brendan Loughnane has been one of the best featherweights in the world, period, regardless of organization. And for me, seeing him lose against Jesus Pinedo not only was, I guess, validation for Jesus Pinedo, but also how difficult this season is. We have Brendan Loughnane, one of the best featherweights in the world. And, people forget, not only is it the challenge that's in front of you, right? That fighter that's standing opposite side of the cage of you, but the season itself, that is the other opponent that you have to deal with. The schedule is absolutely brutal. Doing 4 fights in 8 months and getting each and every training camp correctly, without injuries and without other stuff going on outside of your life, and being able to compete and do it well over the course of 4 fights and become a champion of the PFL is one of the most difficult things you can do in sports. So I think, all those things just came to be realized. I think it's like, Loughnane, tremendous fighter. Jesus Pinedo, of course, very good, very dangerous fighter as well. But seeing that upset, again, it's just another reminder of how dang difficult this sport is, and particularly the season and, just to get to the playoffs is such a beast.
And Kenny, if I could say, I think I'm probably, especially on the media side of stuff, I think I'm one of the most pro PFL guys there is in the industry. I think we've crossed paths plenty of times down there in Orlando for the Challenger Series. Most of the events I attend even live. I think there's no one on the media side. There is with myself and Fight Bananas. But if I could say on the devil's advocate of the playoffs, this is where I think the problem is for the casual mixed martial arts fan, that names of Aspen Ladd or Brendan, or there's so many names, I won't even start naming them off, that now we're in the playoffs, we're in these big these big scenarios, and a lot of these names are not here. This is the big fights, the Final Four and the championships, and a lot of these guys aren't here. How can the PFL get over that hump? What can we do to, I don't want to say guarantee, what can we do to say, hey, Democrat wise, they didn't make it. They did not win. There were upsets. Something happened outside that weren't here. Can we make sure that Brandon and Aspen fight on the undercard? Can we get these names on these cards to kind of beef up the fight card itself? What can we do to make sure that they're still fighting in the playoffs and they're still the right way to do it? And we still get Aspen and Jeremy and whatever, Shane, I know he got in, and I won't bring that up because I know you about it enough. How can we still get these names on these fight cards?
It's a valid question. I think that it depends on which way they want to go, right? If we are going to continue with the playoffs and, accumulating points and all that stuff, I think that it's important that you retain that integrity by making sure that it remains a meritocracy in that, everyone needs to be on some kind of even playing field. Everyone needs to be able to accumulate points just like everybody else, yada, yada, yada. Now, in regards to what I think you're saying is, how do we put on the fight that most people want to see? If you guys have these stars, then how do we make sure that they stay on? Well, I think that's something for the PFL to figure out. And I think you're right that it is kind of, it is a little bit of a hurdle and something that they need to figure out as far as how do we get the most popular fighters front and center, because it is extremely difficult to have this season, to have everything go the way you want, right, from a promotional standpoint.
Sure.
But it does allow for new stars to emerge as well. So I think that part of it is going to be solved, I think, when you have the pay-per-view super fight series that they plan. I don't know exactly that's how they call that, but I think that's their plan, is to kind of move over the bigger stars, the ones that have already established themselves either as champions or very popular fighters, to push them into the pay-per-view realm, which is kind of a different thing, instead of having them compete over the course of the season. Now, who's going to be able to compete in that? I don't know exactly how that's going to come to fruition, but it's an interesting thing. And with all these other fighters coming into the mold, we have Francis Ngannou, of course, is a huge name. There's so much going on right now that the PFL definitely has to figure all of that out, and I'm sure they will.
And I know you maybe didn't even say this on purpose, and you're a wordsmith, so I'm not going to use your words against you for sure, my man. But you did say if they continue this way. Do you foresee maybe the PFL a year from now or 2 years from now maybe not go in this season format, by points format? Especially, I've been trying to save it. I've been trying to save this whole Bellator PFL question for you for the end. Can you foresee this? Hey, guys, we're going to have this mega roster pretty soon. We are going to have Francis. I was going to say Jake Paul at the end and Kayla at the end. Can you foresee in 2 years from now, Kenny, hey, we're going to have this amazing roster. We're going to have some of the biggest names, Johnny Eblin, and the goddamn superstar in the middleweight from American Top Team, probably a top 5 middleweight on this planet. Maybe he's going to be part of the roster. And maybe the season format, I hate the use the word gimmick, but it was maybe a way to kind of get eyes on the PFL. But now you guys have eyes. You have a great roster. You have a great commentary crew. Now we have what you need. We have ESPN Plus. Can we just do 2 shows a month, a pay-per-view a month, and just do a normal formatic MMA type of a show going forward in 2024 and beyond? Can you see it that way, you think?
Great question. I think it's definitely possible. I think the most important thing, not that I am, this big CEO of huge companies or anything like that, but I think it is important to listen to what the fans want, right? I think it was important for the PFL to establish themselves with a different format than, say, the UFC. To go head-to-head with the UFC right now with what they have, I think is a very difficult thing to do, of course. So I think having that different tournament format set them apart. And for those that enjoy seeing that, the playoffs, the upsets, who becomes a champion, who wins $1 million, that is awesome. Yeah. Now, if whatever happens with the PFL, let's say it grows and the roster starts to, expand, then I think that as a business, you need to evolve as well and figure out, okay, it has grown to this point. Now, how do we evolve? How do we stay ahead of it? And how do we solve, the different issues, the different problems that you have at that point in time? So, I think that, like with any business, you have to be willing and able and capable to adjust and adapt as is needed, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the fans that want to watch it. You're trying to maximize fan viewership. You're trying to maximize the experience of people at home watching it on television and pay-per-view or what have you. So I think that naturally, you have to be open to that possibility, and wouldn't be surprised if the PFL does eventually do that.
Absolutely. I know we steered away. I will get us back into kind of where we're at right now, the summer of 2023. Got a couple more futures stuff for you here in a second. But with a lot of upsets, I think so far here that's happened in the spring of 2023, there's been a lot of dark horse winners so far, even on the female side and on the men's side. Give me, and I know you might not want to pinpoint one name if you don't want to, but who is a dark horse guy? We have a guy like Impa Kasanganay. You mentioned Jesus already. Who's like a dark horse guy? There's a couple heavyweights that we did not think that would be there. Almost the light heavyweight division. You can name all four of them that we wouldn't think that's there. Who's a dark horse guy who can win the whole damn thing, Kenny?
For sure. I think Impa Kasanganay, one of the names that you mentioned, is one of the guys that I've been talking about as a dark horse in the division. He comes to the PFL with a lot of experience, obviously fought in the UFC, different weight class. Yeah. But I think he's looking very fast and very powerful still at 205 pounds. And he's very quiet, so he doesn't really attract a whole lot of attention. But he is an extremely hard worker, and he's very dangerous. And it seems like he's found great form so far. He's been kind of heating up. And he's extremely durable, so he can, it seems anyway that he can avoid some of the injuries and some of the pitfalls that other fighters have had in their first attempt at PFL season. So he's been looking strong, comes from a great camp, amazing coaches, amazing team members. So he's one of those guys that I think you have to watch in the 205-pound division.
Absolutely. I know your podcast partner, John Anik, absolutely admires Kayla Harrison. Hasn't been weird. It's been I don't want to say mysterious, but it's just been a little bit of a void of a 2023 PFL year without Kayla Harrison. How has it been different for you and the commentators with no Kayla Harrison in 2023?
It has, right? I mean, Kayla is such a charismatic person, and she is such an amazing fighter to watch and compete. And I think that for her, I know she's been dealing with a lot of different injuries, and just being a part of 3 seasons in the PFL in a row is extremely difficult on the body. I can't even imagine. So she's kept a very busy schedule. And I think this time away is going to allow her to improve on some of the things that she's been working on. She's one of the best athletes in the world for a reason. Being a 2-time gold medalist in judo, I know we talk about it a lot, is just an insane accomplishment. So I think she's going to look back at some of her performances, wins, and of course that last loss against Larissa Pacheco, and come back better. Now, so there has been a bit of a void. However, I think Larissa Pacheco has filled that void in an interesting way. I think she certainly, obviously doesn't speak English as well as Kayla and all that stuff. She's learning, she's getting better. So we don't have that ability to hear her, speak English all the time. But what she is saying, I speak Portuguese, and obviously there's the translation, stuff like that. But she is very charismatic in her own way, and she's so exciting to watch. I mean, she is capable, and I've been saying this since last year, of knocking out any woman in the world, whether it's 145 pounds, 155 pounds. She is a savage. So watch out for her. So she's filled a bit of that void, but it does take that time to be someone on the level of a Kayla Harrison. And Larissa Pacheco is just getting started.
Yeah, I agree. What she says inside that cage does the work for her. Jake Paul and, of course, Nate Diaz is about to box in a couple weeks. And it's funny, Jake Paul is, PFL friendly and together. But Nate seems like a Kenny guy, grew up on the UFC the same time as you. Which way you lean in that fight? The Jake Paul or Kenny, which way you lean in the boxing side of that?
Yeah, Jake Paul is such a dangerous dude. I kind of wrote him off time and time again.
Right.
But the fact that, here's a millionaire who's coming into this sport, making more millions, of course, but he doesn't have to do that. So I kind of question his heart, his ability, things like that. But man, he has proved himself as a very tough athlete, a tough kid, talented kid. And I think he's going to be tough to beat. However, you're going against Nate Diaz. He's been around the sport for a long time. Nate Diaz isn't going to just show up to a fight, in my opinion, and be satisfied with a loss. He's going to be moving forward. He's going to be aggressive. He has a legendary chin, legendary work ethic. And so long as he's healthy, he's going to be tough to take out. And he's like a zombie. You can hurt him, you can hit him, but he's going to keep coming. And how Jake Paul responds to that is going to be interesting. And Nate Diaz, once he gets going, and if he's able to throw a high volume of punches, is going to be tough to stop just based on all of his years of experience. And if I'm looking at one aspect of Nate Diaz's game, that might be the most dangerous. Maybe the jiu-jitsu. Some people would probably say the jiu-jitsu, but boxing, where he gets it done most on the feet is when he's walking you down and throwing punches. So here it is. I think one of the best parts of his game, his boxing, he gets a chance to kind of, compete in that realm. So I think he's going to do fantastic. I think it's going to be a tough fight for whoever wins. But, with all of that fight experience, I have to be leaning towards Nate Diaz at this stage of the game.
Very true. Very true. Kenny, I know the PFL team's going to be upset with me. We're 2 minutes late. I got to ask one last thing for you, my man.
Yes,
I feel
sir.
like we can go for hours. I got
I got
like 19 left things for you. Francis Ngannou finally got the bag. It's so funny. Everyone made fun of this man. I was actually there in Atlanta with him and Bones kind of faced off. We interviewed him backstage. He was so gracious and so nice to all of us backstage. Then he signs this fight with Tyson Fury. There are rumors about how much money he's going to make. Doesn't matter. He's going to make a tons of money. What do you think about him signing to fight Tyson Fury, maybe the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time? And just what do you think of Francis Ngannou?
I'm happy for him. This is what he wanted. Every single thing that he said he wanted to go out there and accomplish, he has done. So I guess, doubt him at your own peril. But he is facing one of the best heavyweight boxers that I've ever seen compete, a world champion in every sense of the word, very, very talented, absolutely massive, and so agile for his size. So, it'd be silly for me to go out here and go, well, Francis is clearly going to knock him out. No, I'm not saying that at all. Is it possible that he can knock out Tyson Fury, though? Yes. But Tyson Fury is the world champion in boxing for a reason. It's going to be a tall task for him, literally and figuratively. But Francis definitely has the power to put any human being down on his back. So I'm very curious about it. I don't love, if I'm being honest, fighters go outside of their realm of specialty, boxers going over to MMA or MMA going over to the boxing realm. It typically doesn't work out well for them. However, Francis, again, if we were to take the best part of his mixed martial arts game, it is his boxing. It's his ability to knock people out, and he does have a chance. But, of course, Tyson Fury is going to be a huge favorite heading into that one.
Man, always love talking with Kenny Florian. PFL Playoffs back, San Antonio, Madison Square Garden. Hey, Brian Petrie, don't let him get too far ahead, all right? Go with the five unit. Get one of these dogs, all right? Get one of these dogs, 5-unit plays, and squash them, all right, my man?
David, thanks, brother.
Appreciate it, brother. Let's talk soon, all right?